I think the most alarming thing that has changed because of my YouTube fame is that I am now not only perceived, but I am perceived only by my glasses when wearing a mask and a hat and or hoodie in public. And that is oddly stressful. That's it. That's my intro. Hi, I'm Amanda. You're watching Swell Entertainment, and I am making this video because Battleshot 420, or the Dandalorian, on Twitter replied to a different tweet of mine saying, can you do a video about gaining YouTube fame during the pandemic? The benefits, the downsides, how it's progressed because of and in spite of, and what your career would be like without it, because I am genuinely curious on your breakdown. I got you. That's really all it takes. If you send me a video idea, I'm like, sounds good, let's go. So thank you for that suggestion. I've made quite a few videos, especially last year, about a variety of different things, like when I did what YouTube paid me for 1 million views, and I talked about my video going viral during the pandemic, literally at the start of the pandemic. So certain things I'm going to kind of breeze over, and I will link those videos down below with like little timestamps. I think that's the best. That way I'm not repeating myself for videos that are already there. So if I talk about something and I like point down, or I have a video thumbnail pop up here, know that there's a different video that probably goes more into depth about certain things. Like for example, how I got my 100K plaque or whatever. I did a whole breakdown on like my career here on YouTube and like how long I spent making content and going into the deep dive of all of that and my 2-year gap and all of that. So I don't want to be super redundant here in this video. I mainly want to talk about the experience of becoming a content creator, full-time content creator during a global pandemic. But the Cliff Notes, to get things started off for you, is that I have been on YouTube since 2014, making videos since I was about, I think 16. I think that was like one of my first few videos is when I was 16. I have braces in my videos. They're still up. My old videos, they are still up. You can go back and watch them. I believe I was a junior in high school. Oh gosh, 16, about to turn 17 then? Maybe? I'm not entirely sure, but they're up there. That's how you know, like I did that and all of that. I was originally AMG Productions, and then I realized that I didn't want to get sued by Mercedes, so I changed it to Swell Entertainment at the request of a friend, or a suggestion of a friend, I guess you could say, because that was something I said a lot because I was a sarcastic little shit. So I had been on YouTube for about 5 years. In 2019, I had made apparently the brilliant decision to take the year off from school after I finished my second associate's degree, and by second associate's degree, I mean it was the one that I had already graduated for the spring prior, and then they decided that they weren't going to give me my diploma because apparently I was missing a class and they didn't tell me, but they let me walk anyway in the graduation, which makes no sense anyway. So I did one class in the fall of 2019 and then finished my degree. It was an associate's degree, but I did it. And I decided that I was going to take the year off to work and kind of throw myself more into this YouTube thing and save for applying to universities and just take a year off in 2020. Apparently 2019, Amanda was psychic because God, she dodged several bullets with that. But anyway, in 2020, I decided that I was really gonna take things more seriously and I was gonna start doing weekly videos. And then by the end of February, I had went from 6,000 subscribers to, God, what did I start? Like 30,000 in the span of a week. It was stressful. I was in San Francisco for a UFO convention by myself, and I called my dad from my hotel room because my video on the Little Late with Lily Singh show was going viral, and I was freaking out and hyperventilating in my hotel room. And then I flew home. A couple of days later, San Francisco declared a state of emergency and went into lockdown because of the pandemic, and then soon after, most of the rest of the country followed. So I really have been experiencing YouTube stardom, for lack of a better word, or just rapid growth here on YouTube. And YouTube, I don't want to see the word stability because that's not the word, but the majority of my time as a full-time content creator, the entirety of my time as a full-time content creator has been spent during a global pandemic. So that's where this is kicking off from. At the time, I was still working as a barista. My barista job never shut down. I've talked about this before. I'm not gonna go super into it, but that's one of the first things that the pandemic did change for me. If it weren't for the pandemic, if it weren't for COVID, I would have stayed at my job probably much longer than I did. My last day was August. August 1st was the last day of my job. Was originally going to put in my 2 weeks notice at the end of July, but then we had a really rough shift. And I just called my dad from what we called the dungeon in the back of the coffee shop. And I was like, I'm handing it in literally right now. I'm writing it on a napkin. I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice immediately. And so my last day ended up being August 1st. But I had always told myself that if YouTube ever became like a legitimate option, or if I ever had another legitimate option for income, I wouldn't quit my day job as a barista until I was making 3 times a month from that source of income alone compared to what I was making at the coffee shop. I definitely butchered that explanation. I needed to know that I was making a choice that was going to be more financially, I don't want to say stable because that's not the word, but I needed to have a justification for why I was leaving my day job, basically. I didn't just want it to be like, okay, cool, I'm a famous person now. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted to make sure that I could pay my bills and not be a burden to my dad or anything like that, because at the time I was still living at home and I was taking care of, other than paying rent and being able to live at home rent free, I was paying for everything myself. My phone bill, my car insurance, my health insurance, all of that I was paying for myself, and I wanted to make sure that I was still able to do that. And I was paying for all the stuff for my channel myself. So I ended up leaving my job earlier, and it was partially because I've talked about this previously, and I've talked about this in my 100K video. I was experiencing burnout. I felt myself drifting. I was not doing well in 2020 before I left my day job, because we went from cut hours, no hazard pay, to once again working more full-time because restrictions were changing. So I went from working full-time as a barista, working on my feet for about 8 hours a day, to also being a full-time YouTuber the moment I got home, and then constantly doing that. And I was working morning shifts at the coffee shop. So that's why if you guys ever see me in public or whatever, and it's early in the morning, my sleep patterns are totally messed up from that. I cannot sleep later than 8 a.m. So like sleep-wise, I was not doing great, and I just felt myself drifting towards burnout. So it was at a point where I was like, okay, clearly I can't keep doing this. And right now at this point, I think YouTube could be something really great if I put time into it now. Then on top of everything with how everyone was being horrible in Orange County during the pandemic and how people were treating me and my coworkers, it was a difficult choice, but it was a choice that I made to leave my coffee shop job. I left on the best of terms, and honestly, I would have no problem going back and working again as a barista, especially at that coffee shop. And it wasn't Starbucks. People always think that it was Starbucks. I did not work at a Starbucks. I worked at a small coffee shop in my town. If things change tomorrow and for some reason all of this disappears, I would have no problem going back to that coffee shop and working as a barista again. Not retail though. I would literally never work retail again. Not if it would save my life, especially not for a chain. Fuck that. So that's like the main thing with YouTube during the pandemic and becoming a full-time YouTuber. I probably would have stayed way longer at my barista job. Whether that would have been a good or a bad decision on my part, I have really no way of knowing. My numbers on YouTube were definitely not consistent at that time, especially with my rapid growth. And I've had people tell me like, you still don't know, or I still don't know what my normal is here on YouTube, because it's still so all over the place. Even without a pandemic, it's still very new. So I really have no idea what my normal is anymore. It is kind of a month-to-month thing. And I may not know for a while if this is something that continues. I have no idea if that was the right decision to leave when I did, but it hasn't proven to be the wrong decision yet. So, I mean, that's great, right? Something that has changed that I was not expecting. I had a lot of people who I started speaking to when they realized like, oh, she's a YouTuber, or my followers were going and things like that. Started talking with other YouTubers. Pretty much all of my friendships that I have formed here on YouTube, whether it's other creators or the like, have all been online in this time. As you guys know, VidCon was canceled. This is gonna be my first time at VidCon as like an established creator and not just like someone whose brother was famous on YouNow at one point in time. It was gonna be interesting. And I was excited for that for VidCon, and it looks like it may have been moved to June of 2022. So I'll be going then. So I was bummed that VidCon got canceled this year, but that was something that's like pandemic focused, I guess. But I mean, that's for all YouTubers, it's not just for me. But my point is that pretty much all of my connections that I've formed here on YouTube since blowing up have been all online. And I don't know if that's the standard for a lot of other creators. I think that's been kind of good and bad, because for me, I'm very awkward over text message, especially if I don't know someone. And online relationships are really stressful in that I don't know like where the line is for people, and I can't really get a basis on it because like we're doing it over Discord or over Twitter or whatever. So I don't know if like we're friends or if you're just asking me a work question, you know, like it's very weird, and I'm not good at reading those social cues over text message. I don't know, maybe some of the friendships that I have, or people who I consider friendships, maybe they would be, you know, more solid friendships, or more, I don't want to say legitimate because that would imply that the friendships that I have now are not legitimate. But I don't know, maybe they would just be different if I had different opportunities to meet them in person and things like that. Or if I was less of an anxious little shit, who knows? I really don't know, but that's, again, less pandemic related and more me related. A few people I've met in person, but for the most part, those people I already knew. Like when I was in Miami with Lissa for the Battle of the Platforms fight, I met up with Plain Rock King, but I knew him because we both went to TanaCon. We met up at VidCon at one point, or we met at VidCon, not met up. We just met at VidCon in 2019. And then we also met up and hung out when we both ended up at the Area 51 raid in 2019. So I already knew him, so it's not like I was like meeting him for the first time when we bumped into each other and then went to the zoo together with Lissa. I mean, it's again, that's like an in-person, like we knew each other already. So yeah, has there been anyone that I've met up just because I met them online? Oh, Mackenzie, my friend Mackenzie, I met her through doing the ScamWap podcast with her, and then since then she's been on my podcast. We went to an oddities thing here in LA together because I got invited last minute, and I was like, do you want to maybe get murdered with me? And she was like, yes, I'll put on running shoes. So I mean, other than Mackenzie, is that really it? Yeah, that's really it. Everyone else has just been really online. And I think that's, if anything, maybe that's better because I think the pandemic really opened up, you know, like video chatting and things like that for people with meeting people. So, I mean, I don't know. It could be different, but, you know, I don't really know how friendships that I've forged with other creators or even that, how that would change if things had been offline at some point, or if we'd been able to meet up at VidCon this year. I don't know. But yeah, if you are one of my mutuals or whatever, you got to make the first move in the DMs or something because I won't. I have anxiety. Literally just messaged me. It's like, let me tell you what this bitch did. We're good. Just something. I need an opening. Listen, I just need a friendship opening, okay? So that's been that. But I've had people who are like, oh, it must be weird, like people recognizing you and things like that. And for the longest time, I just kept being like, no, because for the most part, it's just been online. Like we're all in a pandemic, people are inside. Like for a long time, I was not getting recognized. And since moving to LA, it's definitely happened much less frequently. Actually, which is interesting. I don't know if it's because I was out and about more in Orange County, even after I left my day job. The very first time someone had recognized me was actually before I blew up. It was in January. Oh God, was it that long ago? January of 2020, my dad and I were waiting because my friend was meeting me at the coffee shop so that we could go to Big Bear and go on a trip. And I was sitting with my dad, I got him a cup of coffee, whatever. And this girl walks up and she's like, hey, I'm sorry, are you on YouTube? And again, I was no one at this point, nobody. And it caught me so off guard at the point that I thought my dad paid this woman. It stressed me out. I was like, hi? Okay, I have to go to work, but like, I really like your channel, keep it up. Like, it was so weird and so out of left field. I didn't even get her name, I don't think. I shut down mentally. If you see this and you're still watching, thank you. You stressed me out, but it was very nice of you what you did. I suck. Very nice of you. Okay. And my dad was like, see, I was like, you did this. I still think he won't admit it. I think he paid her because it was just so out of left field. But then things blew up. There was a couple of times on Twitter, I shared this pretty early on in 2020 after things changed and I was still working. There was one guy in particular who came in and was being super creepy. Really creepy, and kept trying to convince me that I knew him. The way that like my coworkers handled it, luckily, like they were like, okay, we're gonna let you go out the back so he doesn't follow you to my car. Like he clearly was waiting for me to get off my shift and someone's gonna be like, oh, it could have just been a guy. I still think it was a subscriber or someone who had seen me because it was just, there were certain things that he said that were just really off. That was more than just like a guy trying to like have an in. It was weird. So yeah, there was that. There was another person, I lied to his face. I felt so bad. He was like, you look like someone who talks about movies on YouTube. Sorry, dude, I was freaking out. A lot of people recognized me while I was working and that stressed me out a lot. Like I was ready to quit on site when things like that happened because it was just an anxiety thing. I didn't feel safe because I had people in my day life. For those of you who don't know, I've talked about this before. I have an abuser who is still on the periphery of my life. They do not know where I live. They did not know I was a YouTuber for the longest time. They found out. I had to block them on everything. It was super fun and exciting. But they didn't know where I worked when I worked at the coffee shop. And so when people would come in and recognize me from YouTube while I was working at my job, when I had like all these safeguards in place to keep myself safe, was really stressful. Not on those people who recognized me or anything like that. That was just my own personal anxiety. So if I shut down and I was like a rude bitch or something, or I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about, that is why it was me panicking. It's not right. I am sorry. And then there were plenty of other times, like I got recognized by, oh my God, I'm forgetting her name. She was very sweet. She recognized me while I was at my post office in Irvine when I had that one over there. I now have one in Beverly Hills, even though I don't live there. A lot of people think I live in Beverly Hills. I love that you think I can afford to do that or that I am willing to do that. I don't even spend 30% of my rent on this place, or a third of my rent, 30%, a third of my income on rent. I'm not above that, about that. If I can cut costs here, I can do it here. I live in a studio apartment. I'm not telling you where I live, but I don't live in Beverly Hills. My P.O. box is there for that same reason. I always think it's safer to have a P.O. box in a neighborhood that you don't live in. I think that's the safest bet. Also, I like driving through all the pretty trees and houses when I'm going over there. So that's why it's in Beverly Hills. I do not live in Beverly Hills. I still love those comments. You live in the rich part of LA. You need to stop complaining about costs and things. But I met a girl, she recognized me at, while I was in line at the post office. She was very sweet. There's a couple of little things like that of people just recognizing me here and there. It's mostly happened when I'm back home in Tustin. It's when it happens. A couple of weeks ago, gosh, I want to say his name was Joshua. I don't think that's right. My dad and I and his girlfriend, I took them to see Old a couple of weeks ago because I'm annoying. Or it was a couple of months ago now that I think about it. And we went and got dinner at this place called Coki's afterwards. And there was a family there, and one of the guys was like, "You do YouTube, right? I like your channel." And so I basically had dinner with a subscriber and his family. They were all very cool. But obviously we were eating, so I didn't have a mask on. So there's that. But yeah, most of the recognitions that have happened with me have been when I'm wearing a mask and it's from my glasses. Stressful that these are now part of my brand, but also I don't like contacts, so I'm choosing not to complain about that. They're currently scraped up. I need new ones. Hermes got to them. They're scraped up by puppy teeth. This other time that it happened was funny because literally that same day, my manager was talking about how he was worried about my safety because I was like saying like, oh, I mean, I'm vaccinated fully. Like the moment I talked about potentially going to the garden, which was the cult I did a video on a couple of months ago, the TikTok cult. I was like, yeah, if once I was fully vaccinated, I was like, I should just go and like do a whole thing. And he was like, yeah, see, can you not? Because you're a tiny female and you will be attacked. And people are going to recognize. He was trying to convince me that I needed to get a camera person and or someone that could double as like a bodyguard for me. And I was like, that's excessive. I don't need that. Everything's fine. No one even recognizes me out here in LA because I'm no one. Because everyone thinks there's someone out here. So it's great. I'm literally no one because I don't have enough to give anyone anything. It's great. And then sure enough, I went to a Bed Bath & Beyond and then one of the employees were like, I like your channel. She was very sweet. Sorry, I panicked. And I think I just said thank you. That was early. That was before I even had Hermes. That was early on. But yeah, it's mostly happened just like when I'm at a store. Another time I was at a Target and I was on the phone with my dad and his girlfriend on the three-way call and someone was like, hey, like your channel. And then just kept walking. I was like, oh, fuck, what did I say? So most of the time it's happened like when I'm out, which obviously I work from home, so that's that. But yeah, it's weirdly anxiety inducing that I'm recognizable even with a mask on. It's a weird feeling. I don't know how to properly put it into words. Sometimes I'm talking with people and they're like, you look so familiar. And I'm just like, okay. Gosh, what else? What's another thing? I mean, we can talk about brand deals, but 2021 has been very beneficial for me with brand deals. A lot of them I've been very blessed in 2021, and you guys have been really great with supporting the brands that I choose and things like that, which is great. I try not to do more than one a week. The entire month of November, I didn't do any because I knew we were doing the plushie campaign, so I decided not to do any brand deals. The first quarter, like January and a couple of months early on in January of 2021, January, February, March for the most part. March is where everything kind of kicked off for 2021, which was stressful because I had moved at the end of January. So I was like, I'm dying. My channel is dying. AdSense was lower and so was, I wasn't getting any brand deal offers or anything like that, which was normal. I didn't have a whole lot. I think I did four in 2020 in the entirety. And then this year I've done a lot and I'm going to save like finances and things like that. I'm probably going to do a 2021 financial review. I don't know how long I can do those before it's like less like transparency and it's more like bragging. So let me know. But yeah, I know a lot of people like when I share about like the AdSense side of things and all of that. But I've definitely seen a fluctuation in AdSense. And I have had people tell me like for like my 1 million views and things like that on that video. I had another video hit 1 million views. My Charlie's Angels video hit 1 million views this year, which was great. I've had a lot of people who tell me it's like, oh yeah, no, if it weren't for the pandemic, like you would have seen way more money from things like this and all of that. So I mean, I guess again, it's the same thing of like, I didn't know what my normal was pre-pandemic. So I really don't know what my normal, how different it would be without the pandemic. I mean, this year I've been able to go to more things. Like I said, the last thing that I went to event-wise was the Battle of the Platforms fight. Went with my dad and Lissa. Lissa also went with me the other night. I got invited to a screening for the House of Gucci, an early screening, which was very nice. Thank you to the Kepler group, I think, for the invite. That was very nice of them. Bi privilege. Yes, I got to go because I was bi. But yeah, I mean, even being out here in LA, like there's plenty of creators and stuff that live out here. I don't get invited to like meet up with them or anything like that. But again, I'm not like super bestie buddy friends with them or anything like that. So I mean, it's really that. I got invited to a couple little influencer bitsy bobby things that were put on by like companies and screenings and things like that, which was very kind of them. I've been forming like a little PR relationship with Wondery and Wondery Media, which is great. I love their podcasts. Not sponsored. I just like their stuff, and they keep sending me very nice gifts, which is nice. Certain things that I think may have happened faster on without a pandemic are just kind of slowly happening, which is great. And honestly, I think is less stressful for me that way, because it's like with the gaps between things that I am invited to, it's less stressful than like, oh, you've got 4 things you're going to this week, deal with it. I think for my personal anxiety, I think it's been more beneficial to have things being, you know, not as clumped together because of the pandemic. I've never really been in a situation yet where I'm meeting like a lot of people who are familiar with my content at one time. Like aside from people, you know, recognizing me here and there. Like I said, VidCon was canceled this year. So I haven't really been in a situation where it's like you're in a room with some people who know that you're a YouTuber and they watch you. Haven't done that yet. Don't know how I'm gonna feel about it when it does happen. Eventually I would really like to do a meetup at some point when things are a little more settled down. I'd really like to do something where we do like a meetup that's like a beach cleanup or something, where we all meet up and everyone gets like Swell Entertainment reusable water bottles, and then we pick up trash together. I don't know, I think that would be nice. I think that would be fun. And, you know, we can do something, you know, like good with this meetup other than just like, hi, it's me, let's say hi, you know, like I would like to do something like that. Or we do like a little fundraiser for a charity or something with the meetup related. I think that would be really fun. But I mean, that hasn't happened yet, and I don't know when that would be potentially able to happen. I do think that I've benefited as a content creator from the pandemic, because especially at the start when things were blowing up, people were looking for content. And so the fact that I was fairly new and had a whole backlog of content and then was also posting regularly, I think it really benefited me that people were staying home and desperate for content and were running out of things to watch on Netflix. You know, I think that it more than anything, I have benefited from the pandemic as a content creator than not. And that is a really weird feeling. I had a lot of guilt last year thinking about that. I had a lot of guilt when I left my job and like, am I even, you know, is it even right for me to leave this job when people are desperate for work right now? And then it's like, okay, well, when someone else could take my spot when I don't really need it anymore, is that even right for me to stay? You know, so I've been through a lot. I'm in therapy, you know. My content shifted obviously because previously I was really big into going to events and doing things like that. And though I've done 1 video, 2 videos here and there about, you know, me being invited to things and all of that and going to the Battle of the Platforms, obviously pandemic changed all of that for events. And so I shifted, but luckily I was annoying and refused to niche down more than just me sitting here and talking to you guys about stuff. Even that in and of itself, like though I was able to shift, it wasn't like a detrimental shift to my content. If anything, I think it made me more creative in trying to find different things to talk about. I don't know if the pandemic would have changed like how quickly I got an editor. Maybe if there was a time last year without the pandemic when I left my job and was doing full time, maybe if events had changed or I was busy doing other things other than just YouTube, maybe I would have gotten an editor quicker. But even then, I didn't even consider getting an editor until I moved out here to LA and shook up my routine so much and living alone. And I had literally shaken up my routine so much to the point that I had all these ideas and I had no time to do any of them. Not just for YouTube, but like just other things that I really wanted to do creatively and things like that I needed an editor so I wasn't just spending 12 hours a day editing. Yeah, I mean, maybe William, are you weigh in? I think more than anything, I can't look at like, is this all a downside? Like, oh, it's been so hard. I'm not gonna do that because that's just not the case. I've been very blessed and very fortunate that you guys latched onto my channel when you did, because my family would have been fucked, you know, if we didn't have the support of you guys with the YouTube AdSense changing and all of that when my hours were cut at the day job. Every once in a while I come into consciousness and I acknowledge that literally 2 years ago, I was like crying, not being able to pay my phone bill at the same time because my car insurance fell the day before, and I'm going to 4 different consignment shops in one day just trying to get enough money to pay the bill. And now I'm literally living alone in LA and I can buy my dog expensive dog treats, you know, like I can really go and do whatever I want, and I can afford to do acting classes and pursue that dream that I've had since I was freaking 4, you know, and I can write. I'm doing NaNoWriMo as I'm filming this right now, you know, and I have time that I can take to write. Like I come into consciousness and I'm like, what the fuck has, like, the just complete 180 that my life has done in the span of 2 years, a year and a half now. It's just wild. It really is. Like, it's hard to kind of think about like the downsides or like how things are different, because again, this is really all I've known for my channel and for my current career path. And so I don't know what the future is holding, but I mean, if anything, I think I've developed a lot of more healthy responses to negative comments and, you know, how I keep my mental health taken care of and things like that, because this is what I do now. And so I think if there was a time where I was working more, or it weren't for the pandemic and I wasn't spending so much time online to begin with and all of that, that maybe I wouldn't have developed these habits better or as soon as I did. Or, you know, figured out, you know, where my boundaries are with creators and with subscribers and what I'm okay with interacting with subscribers and what I'm not. Maybe I wouldn't know that, like, hey, sometimes it's best just to hit mute and then have a screenshot of their username in your creepy people folder. Yes, I have a creepy people folder. If you have to ask if you're in the creepy people folder, the chances you probably are, okay? Like, there are certain things that I probably wouldn't have realized that I needed to do to protect my mental health and protect myself if it weren't for the fact that all of this was happening during a pandemic and there was nothing else for me to really focus on or to go and do other than kind of figuring out, okay, how do I protect myself in this? How do I keep my mental health safe and do X, Y, and Z? And so there are systems and practices that I now have in place that I maybe probably wouldn't have developed if it weren't for the world being shut down around me at the same time. Yeah, I mean, I guess silver lining, I don't know. What is that? Is that a positive? Proper care and keeping of you? Is that? I know I say this all the time, or I don't know if I say it any more often, but I am so thankful for you guys' continued support on this channel. And, you know, even when, you know, YouTube isn't promoting me to new subscribers or anything like that, like, you guys are so great always, and you guys are sticking around. And it's so fun when I see you guys like starting to tag me on TikToks, like, Amanda, look at this home renovation, like things like that, or look at this building, or look at this, or look at this cult thing. It's so great that you guys are like figuring out what you like of my content itself, because I know I give you a lot of suggestions and just kind of sending me stuff and all of that. It's really great and it's really sweet, and I just love your guys' support for that, and it's great. And that you guys kind of like that it doesn't matter that you don't know what I'm talking about. You're gonna watch it anyway, and you're gonna find out. It's great, and I like that you guys like that. I really am thankful for you guys' continued support, whether you guys are supporting me just by subscribing and watching my videos, or by sharing them, or by buying merch, or by being on the Patreon and all of that. It's so great, and I'm glad that you guys are liking the podcast and all of that. I really like doing Swell Shenanigans. It's really fun for me, because I know you guys don't always like when I do interviews here on this channel, so I get to do them over there. It's much more fun. I like when you guys message me and you're like all like, oh, are you doing anything with acting? The answer is no. I'm in class, but that's really it. Or like you're asking about what I'm writing and things like that. It's really nice, you know, to see that you guys are supporting, not just like here on YouTube, but also like when I talk about other things that I'm interested in or working on. You guys there's so many of you who are so excited about that for me, and for me to figure things out for myself, and that's just great. So yeah, I would really like to do a beach cleanup at some point. I think that would be fun, or some type of like food drive meetup or something like that, and partnering with a charity out here in LA or in Orange County or something like that. I think that would be great. I'll keep you posted and figure that all out for you. But yeah, that's really gonna be it. How has your career changed based on the pandemic? I know it's a little all over the place. What's a video of mine that you saw? How long have you been subscribed? Maybe you have other ideas for how my career would be different, or how things would be different if it weren't for the pandemic. Let me know. Comment down below. Don't forget, I have the Swell Shenanigans podcast, new episodes every Wednesday, both on YouTube and on anywhere you can find a podcast. You can listen to it there. I have merch, including mugs, including stuff. Shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd also like to support me on Patreon, the link will be listed down below. If you'd like to follow me on all social media, that'll be all up here. And that's gonna be it. Have a lovely day. Goodbye. I don't know, maybe I would have been more like obsessed with moving faster versus like building up content. Maybe I would have been like, okay, I need to get on Twitch and I need to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe I would have done a lot more in 2020 if it weren't for the pandemic, because I probably would have been focused on like, this is disappearing tomorrow, you know, versus like building content and focusing on that. I don't know. Thank you, Alan, Braden, Cameron, Christopher, Chris, Cody, Colton, Crash, Pacey, Destiny, Devin, Dirty One, Dawn, Elliot, Evan, Feckles, Hopeless, Hollow, Checker, Ray, Joe, John M, Jordan, Joseph, Kenny, Kevin, Kim, Kristen, Lamb, Lisa, Luis, Matt, O, Matthew S, Meme Lord the Red, Michael, Micah J, Nathaniel, Pat, Penn, Pralic, Rob, Robert, Ross, Sam, Serena, Skylar, Simon, Stefan, Tasha, Timothy, Tom, Wendy, Williams, Andre.